Hello everyone, Gabriel from Gabriel's Hobby Studio here. Today I'll be showing you the painting that I did on this kitbashed Beastman for my Necromunda gang. My Goliath gang for Necromunda is all converted or kitbashed Beastman models, and I've themed my entire gang around being Beastmen that dwell in the Underhive. So here is the model after it's been primed. As far as the parts that I used for this particular kitbash, what I've taken is the legs from the Stealth Battlesuits box. The torso is from one of the 3 bigger models within the Doomlord's Blood Bowl box. The head is from the Gor's box for Age of Sigmar. And then the arms and the weapons were scavenged from a bits bin. I'm assuming they're orc bits. Let me know in the comments below. So the first step here is I'm just going to go through and I'm going to get all my base colors out of the way. And what I'm starting with here is a burnt sienna. Then I'll move on to a raw umber. So the paints that I use are golden fluid acrylics. I find that they have about the same consistency as the miniature paints, and for me they behave exactly like what I'm used to in typical acrylics, and I can mix them because I know exactly what colors are in them to begin with. I prefer to mix my own colors. That's just a personal preference. You know, I'd like to hear from you guys as well. Does anyone else use artist paints instead of miniature paints? Here I'm going into the raw umber, which is the darker brown color, and I'm using that for all of the armor plates and anything that should be leather. So this step that I'm going through now is I'm just putting white down on the weapon, so that way any colors that I put on there are going to be much brighter than this dark gray undercoat. I'm also making sure to get the grenades and the pistol as well. So I'm just going around the model now and I'm picking out all the flesh tones. I'm using Kislev Flesh, which is a Citadel paint, and I'm making sure to do multiple thin coats over the model so that way I can have good coverage and not have any of that really dark gray showing through. So now I'm moving on to my second layer of color. Over top that burnt sienna, I'm putting down a darker orange. I took a little bit of that burnt sienna and mixed it in with my orange. And I'm just making sure to put that over a lot of the surfaces, making sure to leave that burnt sienna in a lot of the crevices. Now I've moved on to the pistol, and I'm putting down a straight orange color over the holster. While I've got this color on my brush, I'm just going to overbrush the wraps on the hands and the handle. So now I've moved into working on the armor plating. For the armor plates, I'm taking a orange color, but I'm taking orange and I'm getting inside the plates and leaving a lot of that dark raw umber around the edges. I'm trying to emulate the edges of the armor plates having been scratched, and any paint that was on them has just kind of eroded off. On the shoulder pads, I've thinned down my orange here, and I'm just making sure to get a good coverage over it for a first coat. The shoulder pads are going to take several coats in order to get a color that I'm happy with. And on the gauntlet, I've moved into a brighter orange, picking out a bunch of highlights, primarily in the middle and then on the upper surface of the gauntlet. I then use that same orange and start working that into the shoulder pad to brighten that area up. A lot of this model so far is really dark and neutral, and I want to bring out some brighter spots along the top because I want to bring the focus up to the face, shoulders, and then the weapon itself. So as I continue to work on the shoulder pads and on the armor plates, I will gradually add more yellow into the orange that I'm working with. I will be using this increasing yellow to build up my highlights. On the legs, I'm making sure just to get a lot of the surfaces that light would hit, and I'm trying not to get any of the recessed areas. I want to leave that brown, dirty orange color on the underside of each surface. And again with that yellow, doing a little bit of edge highlighting on the top of the gauntlet. And again, working in more yellow with my paint, and in a thinner consistency here, working on bringing in brightness to the top surfaces of each panel on the legs. I'm rapidly approaching more of a pure yellow color now, and I'm just going around the gauntlet, edge highlighting everything, and on the legs I'm going even less on the surfaces that are raised, trying to catch the topmost surfaces, doing kind of a heavy edge highlight, still working on brightening up those areas that would catch light. As you can see, I just made a mistake and got this color on the face of the model. Now, if you're painting, don't worry, it's easy to fix. In my case, I'm just taking off as much paint as possible while it's still wet, and then I'm going back in with my Kislev flesh to put that color back on. So at this point now, I'm onto a more pure yellow color for my highlights. And yellow is notorious for not having solid coverage, so I'm having to go over this several times to get a solid field of yellow. I am now moving into darkening up that flesh tone and also putting shadows in all those recesses. I'm using a contrast paint now from Citadel. It's Dark Oath Flesh. And I'm going to be going over the skin multiple times here just to keep darkening up that tone. While I'm waiting for that Dark Oath Flesh to dry, I go back to the shoulder pads and the rest of the plating as well. And I've done a orange glaze that didn't work out too much at first, so I put a little bit of red into it, and I'm now getting that put over the model. And with all the messy brushwork out of the way now, I've moved on to the metallics. I'm using pig iron from P3 for my silver color, and I'm putting that on all the spikes on the gauntlets, putting that on the grenade and the pistol, as well as aspects of the axe. So the next step here is to go into now my other metallics. I'm using an iridescent copper from Golden Fluid Acrylics and going on the weapon, as well as making the trim on the shoulder pads copper. I am also using this color on the armband, and I'll be using it on the grenade, on the firing pin, and that ring around the grenade, only hitting the uppermost surfaces. So now that I can work a little bit finer, I'm now going in and working on the leather straps, using a lighter brown to add dimension. Onto the base, I want to make sure that the base looks a little bit dirty. So I'm putting down brown colors as my base. I'm moving into a mixture of coppers, silvers, and golds, and I'm mixing them in different ratios. So the last step that I've got here for the base is I'm taking that gold and copper mix that I made and adding a glazing medium to it to thin it down, and I'm just putting that over the top surface of the base. It doesn't show up well on camera, but there is a difference. You can see the underlayers through the top because of the glaze. So the final step now is to make sure that the base rim is painted black. And here's the finished model. If you enjoyed this content and you want to see more, like the video, subscribe, and make sure that you hit the bell icon so that way you can be notified when I post new content.